I have a true ghost experience for you. Hi, I recently discovered your channel and have been listening nearly every day. I'm not a young person. I have had paranormal encounters throughout my life. I am a woman who worked in a west suburban area of Chicago called West Dundee back in 2001 and 2002. I worked for a security guard company which provided lowly paid night watch people to properties, part-time and seasonal. Before I proceed any further in my recounting, I want to stress that these experiences of mine are totally true, but would probably sound to you like the stuff of Hollywood fright movies or something. I only told these stories verbally to family members of mine. I never wrote them out before. They seem to have a look on their faces that they were not sure my experiences were believable, even though I have zero history of fabricating anything to anybody. My employer needed a guard to sit in a room in the back and the first floor of this old 19th century Victorian mansion. One elderly woman lived there. She stayed upstairs in the house. She stayed there during nice weather in Illinois. They went and lived at another house in Florida during the winter months. I began my post there in spring of 2001 from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 nights a week. Another guard had the 2 nights. A driveway came up off of Route 31, circled around in front of the mansion, and a large 3-car garage, then circled back out onto Route 31. I parked my small car nearest to where I could see it, out the window where I sat. Soon on, I wanted to wander outside and back there, because I kept being curious about odd sights, which I wanted to verify for myself what exactly they were. There was a driveway which branched off the house's circular and went way back into who knows where. I walked it, and along it on my left were these big black yet shriveled, gnarled, mostly leafless trees, which made me immediately think of the Wizard of Oz movie. My source of light was the big bright moon. On my right was a thing that looked like a smokestack or chimney from the 19th century. It stood on the ground and went up about, maybe 50 feet tall, all black. Behind it was like another house, but no windows. It was large. Then I could see it was obviously a family mausoleum. I ran back to my post. Some other night soon after that, I went into my completely locked car to retrieve my lunch bag. The inside of my windshield was coated in a slight condensation. In this were imprinted hands. Like you put your hand there, then removed it. The hands were numerous left and right hands, which completely filled the windshield, and all their fingertips pointed out long and pointed, so that they looked more like an idea of an alien or demonic hands. I put my hand up to them. They were bigger, like a man's hands. But my car was locked, like I said. They were definitely on the inside, not the outside of my car. A night soon after that, in my post there, I started to fall asleep, and a horribly loud bang on the window startled me to stark awake. If someone physically really did that, the window would have shattered due to the sound and feeling of the blow. So I went outside. There, in front of me, about 15 yards away or so on the large lawn, were about 10 of these adult deers, who were all sitting down in a little crowd, on all their fours folded under them, just staring at me, still as statues, each with orange, glowing eyes. I know that animal eyes reflect light at night, though. It was truly odd looking, however, and after a couple of hours, they left. During a night not long after that, on into the middle of my shift, I went outside and saw that this house trailer was parked behind my car. It wasn't there when I arrived. It looked vintage from some era gone by. It was all black. It was creepy looking. Was there when I left at 6 a.m. The lady who lived upstairs never came and met me, never spoke to me. Once in a great while, a man with silver hair would come over into the front door, which I knew was verified to me by my employer as being her son. He was not friendly to me either, like I was a thing. One night, I started to fall asleep in my chair. I was soon dreaming. Right away, this blonde boy of about 8 or 9 years old was standing next to me in my dream, in my chair, and was telling me that my security boss was making the rounds to give a surprise check-in on his guards of the night shifts at various posts. The boy told me I needed to wake up because he is coming up the driveway right now. I sat up, awoke, looked out the window, and there comes my boss, making rounds. I was still assigned to and working on that property. Come September 11th, 2001. That night, all aircraft in the US was grounded, but I was outside walking around on that property and looking up into the sky. As I watch, these two white rapidly flashing lights dart around all over the sky. I didn't hear any noise like military jets would make or drones. I was unaware of drones at the time. People might wonder why I stayed in that job with a creepy property and all these experiences for that season. I was homeless for a while, and I was desperate for income to keep me in a motel weekly apartment. I am fine now. I live pretty much farther away from the Chicagoland area. You can refer to me as Simone if you want, if you decide to accept my story. Also have a few stories from when I was a paranormal investigator. Basic outlines. Investigated an old mental hospital and we had a sensor trip by the main door. All out team are 3 floors up doing a ghost box and the alarm goes off. Everyone runs downstairs. I go to the main way with most of my team, whereas my boyfriend follows the guy who knows the place and gets super lost, and as the guy is running in front of him, my boyfriend hears giggling from behind him and a shadow walk past. Creepy. Scared in Abergavenny, Wales. We are in the main pub at about 3:30 in the morning conducting a seance, and it goes really cold, and then a scream comes from the bathroom 10 feet away, and everyone freaks out. The scream then comes closer and closer until it's right behind my mother, who then proceeds to nearly faint. Falstaff experience, Stratford-upon-Avon. We're in the attic conducting a seance where there is meant to be a creepy rapist spirit who tends to follow people home. We are all around one end of the table, and the table that no one is sitting at, but Kaneki shakes and slaves into the out table. They are both heavy-duty oak, and slams into my stomach. Creepy cauldron, Stratford-upon-Avon. Standing at the top of these stairs, I suddenly get this horrid stomach pains, which make me fall down in pain and unable to move. I get taken downstairs and sleep until the end of the investigation. Wake up at the end, where the owner gives us the history of the property. We always hear it at the end to ensure genuine readings from our mediums and not to taint evidence. And it turns out, a woman became pregnant when it was a pub and was single, and the father didn't want to be found out to be cheating on his wife. So, he pushed her down those stairs to induce a successful miscarriage. That creeped me out. Stranger still, as me and my mother are driving home, the stomach pains are getting worse and worse, and we don't know why. So we call up our leader and he freaks out as we had forgotten to speak the closing prayer, asking all that was in the property to let us go alone and in peace. We do one over the phone and my stomach pains instantly gone. Weird. Used to go to Wells Cathedral School. Look it up. It's like a 1,100-year-old, and I used to board in the dorms in the week. Wasn't a night that went by where we didn't hear scratching from the closets, pots and pans banging in the kitchen, and people running up and down the stairs. We had a night maid who watched out for us and stayed up in case of emergencies to keep an eye on the troublemakers. She would always run round and check, and there was never anyone there, as she could see the stairs from her office. My boyfriend from the first story and now fiance went to a really old private school too, and also had loads of experiences in and out of school until this day. We are both 20. We'll try to convince them to tell me in detail, and we'll try to send it in. My Paranormal Experiences. Hello, Horror Studio One. I've been subscribed to you for a very long time, and I heard you wanted more paranormal stories. Throughout my life, I have seen several apparitions, and would like to share with you. I'm sorry if I repeat myself. Anyways, when I was small, I saw my first spirit. I was minding my own business, sitting on my couch. I don't remember much from that experience, but I had turned and saw a dark, tall shadow figure in the hallway. I'm pretty sure it had been stalking me through the years. It had left me alone for a good 7 years or so. When I saw it again, I was listening to one of your videos when I looked up and saw bright blue eyes staring into my soul from the edge of my bed. The figure had long, dark black hair. I blinked and it was gone. I decided to brush it off until the next day. The day after I saw the figure, Mom left me home alone. I was so happy. It's been a while since she left me home. I took my dog to my room and was watching Investigation Discovery or something when the small puppy started barking uncontrollably. I tried to calm him down when I heard it. Drawers and cabinets were opening and slamming shut. I swear to you, I thought someone broke in, so I grabbed my scissors, ready to stab somebody, when I stepped out of my room and nothing was there. Later that night was one of the worst experiences of my life. I had the worst nightmare. I was in my bed when I looked to my closet where there was a tall female figure with a ripped white gown and disgustingly untidy hair. What frightened me the most, however, it had glowing blue eyes and sharp teeth. I'm not sure if this nightmare was just me trying to fill in some blanks or the spirit trying to tell me something. I was pretty fine up until recently, where I've been getting unexplained scratches and bruises and terrible, terrible nightmares. I've been getting less sleep, and I am scared to sleep with the lights off. When I leave the light off in my room, I tend to see human-like shadows in the darkness. Another thing that happened was when I was about to go to a band concert. I had set down my makeup when something threw my small teapot at me. The window was not open, and the AC was off. There was no explainable reason to why the teapot ended up at my feet like that. Mom does not believe anything I tell her, especially when I tell her I see the paranormal. But I send you this in hoping you will read this and believe me. Thank you for taking your time to read my story. I'm sorry if I left out any details. Supernatural life. I have several odd and supernatural things that's happened in my life. I will share a couple of them. Hopefully you'll be able to use them as submitted content. If you like this or want to hear more, I can send you more of my crazy supernatural life events. In the early 90s, I had come back from the army and moved in with my mom. We weren't getting along well and I moved after a year. I moved in with a close friend. Now I have to explain that this friend is gay. He's a 6-foot-tall guy who was very thin and kept his hair in long braids. I'm not gay and he respected that, so we were good friends. Among the 4 friends I had, he was the joker, always playing pranks and messing with you to get a laugh. When I moved in, the arrangement was that I would sleep on the couch at night. I would get up fairly early and get ready for work, and it was his place after all. One night, I awoke to Chris standing over me in the dark. I asked him what he wanted, but he didn't say anything. Thinking he was playing a prank, I flipped him off and turned over to go back to sleep. The next day, as I was making coffee, Chris came into the kitchen. "Listen," I said. "Fun's fun, but don't mess with me when I'm sleeping." He swore he didn't know what I was talking about. "Yeah, sure, don't do that anymore." Again, he insisted. He didn't know what was going on. I went to work and didn't think any more about it. The evening was plain and boring. We watched movies and goofed around and had fun. I expected him to bother me that night, but nothing happened. Move forward 3 days and I have forgotten the whole thing. I forgot about it until I woke up one night with a start. Chris was standing in the living room looking at me. "Fuck you doing?" I yelled. "Take your ass to bed and stop fucking with me," I said as I sat up. I was getting pissed. I was thinking about punching my friend when I hear him ask in a low voice, "Ed, what's wrong?" This made me more angry. "You're in here fucking with me? I told you I have to..." I stopped talking. I froze. I had to be dreaming. Chris had just walked out of the bedroom. It wasn't him standing there. We both looked at the person standing in front of me. It was a thin woman with long hair. She just stared at me. A big, glassy, wide-eyed stare. Chris had just gone what the hell out when she just vanished. At this point, we turned into 10-year-old girls. We screamed and started flipping on lights. We pulled out a couple beers and sat in the living room talking about it. Neither of us recognized her. She had never, to our knowledge, shown up before. Needless to say, we didn't sleep. Over the next few nights, she would appear to me just as before. A pale woman standing in the dark, just staring at me. She never spoke when we tried to talk to her, and always vanished if I got up. After a month, we decided to experiment and switch sleeping for a week. Nothing changed. She appeared to Chris after a few days and did the same staring routine. We tried getting EVP with tape recorders, but never got anything. Somewhere in this time, we started to notice the footprints. On any night that she appeared, there'd be a trail of feline paw prints on the wall, a straight line. They would start at the back of the couch and go straight up the wall. This continued for months. We told friends and they didn't believe us. They thought we were in a scheme of some kind, until that one day. The guys had come over to hang out. John, Ben, and Sean were sitting on the couch. Chris was to my left against his bedroom door, and I was sitting against the door to the sunroom. It was a small room where Chris kept and sold his plants. There were no outside doors on small tree-lined windows. The only way in was from the living room, and I was sitting against that door. You could see into the sunroom from the large window between it and the living room. As we sat there talking and joking, I noticed John and Ben aren't paying attention. They are looking at something. I ask, "What's wrong?" and look at Chris. John and Ben start asking who the woman is. We explain that she's no one. "Bullshit! I can see her looking right at me," Ben exclaims. John chimes in and agrees. I tried very hard to convince them that it's no one, but they insist I have locked some woman in the sunroom. Chris finally huffs and says, "Ed, open the door and let them find out for themselves." I get up and with a flourish point them to the door. The guys get up off the couch and step forward. The woman vanishes. Just as we knew she would. Ben, Sean, and John flip out and run into the sunroom. They go on for hours about seeing her. Chris and I comfort them, and I offer to go buy them a beer as we didn't have any. That was the last time we saw her. She never came back, and we never did find out what she wanted. The cat paw print stopped too. To this day, Chris and I still laugh about that. John swears he was never there. Ben always says, "At least she left quietly." Sean says he remembers something happened, but he can't remember what it was. During the same year the couch apparition occurred, a weird thing happened with Sean's mother, Debbie. Debbie was a bit older than me. She liked Sean hanging out with our little group because we kept him out of trouble. At the time, Sean was 14, and most of us were in our mid-20s. Since we didn't drink or do drugs, we were a pretty tame lot. Mostly we played cards or just hung out. One day, Chris and I headed over to Debbie's to get Sean. When we go to the door, we both felt odd. Shrugging it off, we knocked. Sean answered, looking extremely happy. He jumped and hugged me. The fuck? What was I thinking? But I squeaked out a hey. Sean let go and we walked inside. Debbie, a voluptuous woman of 32, comes out of the bedroom as Sean yells, "The guys are here!" Debbie barrels right through and bear hugs me. "Thank you," she says. She too is grinning ear to ear. Sure, I say. Debbie's face slackens and she says, "You don't remember?" I shake my head, asking what she's talking about. She has us sit down and begins to explain. Debbie explains that the night before she had a terrible nightmare. She and the boys had gone lost somewhere. As they wandered down the road looking to head home, they had somehow walked into a carnival. It was old and dilapidated. It looked totally abandoned. As they walked around looking for an exit, she had become separated from the boys. That's when it happened. Something grabbed her from under a carnival wagon. She remembered fighting and kicking at it, but it was so strong. As it pulled her down under the wagon, suddenly it let go. She awoke to a loud banging on her front door. As she got out of bed, grateful to be out of her nightmare, the knocking got louder. Boom, boom, boom. Debbie walked to the living room, followed by her sons. "Who's there?" she called out. From the other side of the door, they heard me say, "It's me." She ran to open the door, and there was no one there. Puzzled, she closed the door. They stood there scratching their heads for a few minutes when the phone rang. Debbie said when she picked up the phone, I was on the other end. I said, "Are you all right now?" When she said she was fine, I just hung up. They sat the rest of the night wanting to know what had just happened. Chris and I showed up the next day unannounced, but she knew I was coming. I don't remember calling her at all. What's also strange is Sean and his brother say they could hear their mother screaming in her sleep. It all stopped with me banging on the door. Chris and I told my mother about it one day with the Ghost Girl event. My mom's response? I was hoping you would grow out of that. It seems I used to see ghosts when I was younger, but my mom didn't know what to tell me. She just hoped it would go away after puberty. Since I never brought it up anymore, she thought it had. I explained it didn't. I just never told anyone, except Chris and Ben.